Hello, everybody. Welcome to Something to Talk About. This is my character video for the week, and it's an A Song of Ice and Fire character from a little house I've never talked about, little rebellious house. So yeah. So, hi, welcome to Something to Talk About. My name is Taco, and yeah, I'm gonna cover House Blackfyre, yo. Technically, this is like it's got to be my first king I've covered too. Maybe I don't know if he counts as a king. He calls himself a king. I think it might be. So yeah, before we get into that, what are we doing here? Pause this, read it. I've been doing this for a long time. If you're new here, this is what's going on. That's it. Also, if you're new here, click like, click subscribe, do all that stuff. And if you're not new here, don't. No, I'm kidding. Do all that stuff too if you're not subscribed. All right, whatever. Enough channel politicking aside. Let's get right into Maelys Blackfyre. Maelys the Monstrous, the last Blackfyre? Dude, this guy is larger than life, literally. He's literally a monster. And I can't believe I've never talked about a Blackfyre. If Fire and Blood Volume 2 came out by now, like ever, if it ever does, I'm sure Maelys would be way too big of a character for me to follow. I'm sure he's a much bigger character. And in the lore, he definitely seems really important. But because we don't know too much about him, because all we really got is in the world of Ice and Fire and the couple times that he's been talked about, I can cover him. He's not that big of a character yet. So yeah, he's a big character physically though. So let's just jump into it. All right. Maelys the frickin' monsters. Maelys the first Blackfyre was the last of the Blackfyre pretenders. All right, I got at least one viewer, if maybe some others, that are very pro Blackfyre. They hate the Targaryens. They love the Blackfyres. I'm gonna be saying the words pretenders a lot. Okay, you're just gonna have to be okay with it. Okay, I'm not writing. I don't write the lore. All right, I don't write the histories, but they're pretenders. All right, moving. I'm staying out of it politically. I don't care who you backed between Damon and Darren. All right, it's just how it is. Just the way it is. They lost. All right. And the last known member of the male line of House Blackfyre. Male line. Ah, ah. There we go. Wink, wink. He had a second head, no bigger than a child's fist sprouting from his neck. Okay. Besides the second head, Maelys also had a grotesquely large torso and arms, and thanks to that, he was inhumanly strong, able to kill a horse with a single punch. Not Tyrek Lannister, it was a completely different horse. All right. And tear a man's head off of his shoulders. He was named Maelys the Monstrous for his grotesquely huge torso, fearsome strength, and savage nature. So I don't want to make any of this, like we come from or we talk about a world. I cover a world of Song of Ice and Fire world is not progressive by any means. I don't like the idea that just because the guy was born like you know uh like disabled that we call him a monster. He does act monstrous besides that. So I'm not being ableist or anything. I am just following a world that most likely is very ableist. So please, I'm not going to be like, oh, that monster freak with a second head. It's not his fault he was born with he tried to absorb his twin in the womb. But that's probably what happened, yeah. But yeah, moving on. Now we get to talk about House Blackfyre. Wow, it's crazy. I'll make it quick. Some people don't like it when I cover these bigger houses because I have a whole slide about the bigger houses that they already know. Look, we know who the Lannisters and the Targaryens and the Blackfyres are. I know. I'll just do it quick. All right. House Blackfyre was an extinct house from the Crownlands, a cadet branch of House Targaryen. House Blackfyre was founded by Daemon Blackfyre, legitimized great bastard of Aegon IV, the unworthy Targaryen. House Blackfyre is named for the Valyrian steel sword of the same name that was given to Daemon Blackfyre. Their sigil is a black three-headed dragon breathing black fire on red, and it's just the Targaryen sigil with reverse colors, right? Just Targaryens, but different. Among the traits, passed on to the Blackfyres by the Targaryens were the platinum blonde hair, violet eyes, premonition like dragon dream ability. Despite many rebellions and claims of the Iron Throne, House Blackfyre eventually died out in exile. Though it is possible the female line is still around, which you guys already know. So yeah, there, cool. Moving on. All right, cool. Sweet. Back to Maelys. All right. Raised in exile. So after the fourth Blackfyre rebellion in 236 AC, Bittersteel and the Golden Company fled back to Essos. I don't want to cover every single rebellion. This isn't a history of all of House Blackfyre. It's just Maelys, right? But you guys know, first Blackfyre happened, Bittersteel, back Daemon, and a bunch of his heirs died. Then the second Blackfyre, third Blackfyre, fourth Blackfyre. They all happened. All right, so this is taking place after the fourth one. So, which we don't know too much about the third or the fourth. But yeah. The fourth Blackfyre rebellion happened in 236 AC. Bittersteel and the Golden Company fled back to Essos. Bittersteel then died in 241 AC, leaving the Golden Company behind. Maelys was raised in exile in Essos. We are not sure how Maelys was related to the rest of the Blackfyres, but what we do know is that his cousin Daemon was a captain general of the Golden Company. So Maelys fought his cousin for command of the Golden Company. So maybe that means that more of the direct line went to his cousin and he was an offshoot of that. But if you look at if you go to like the Wiki of Ice and Fire and look at the family tree, Maelys and Daemon are like, over here. We don't know, right? So we follow the ones that we do know, and then they're over here. So he could, be related in some way. But either way, it was his cousin, Daemon. Daemon most likely was the more heir, right? And maybe that's why the Blackfyre was, or the Golden Company was being raised by him. So in order to take power and become like the big main heir of House Blackfyre, he had to kill his cousin. And also in killing his cousin, he took control of the Golden Company. So yeah, he fought his cousin for command of the Golden Company. Maelys used his inhuman strength and killed Daemon's destrier, his horse, with a single punch. One punch! And then he twisted Daemon's head off and tore it from his shoulders. Tore his head off! That's all right. Following Daemon's death, Maelys assumed command of the Golden Company. Yeah, it's my company now. And then, he got into a band. Guys, let's make a band. Let's get the band back together. In 258 AC, Maelys gathered with 8 other outlaws, exiled and sellsword captains beneath the Tree of Crowns in the Despeda lands in Essos. There they formed an alliance called the Band of Nine. The band consisted of the Old Mother, just an old like pirate lady, Samaro San, not to be confused with House San that you guys know about. Well, Family San, I don't know if they're House San, but Salador San. Zobar Quoqua, who's from the Summer Islands, Lyman Lashar, and then Spotted Tom, and then Derek the Bad Apple Fossaway. Yeah, there's just a Fossaway over here. That's so cool. Aquaro Silvertongue Daries, and finally Maelys, the one we're covering today. The band promised to aid each other in carving out a kingdom for each member. They pledged to help Maelys in conquering the 7 kingdoms. Well, it was generally believed that the Band of Nine would stay in Essos. They managed to sack Tyros and then seize the Stepstones, which made them a real threat to Westeros. Maelys declared himself to be King Maelys Blackfyre. Okay, I just wanted to talk about the big allegiance that he had with the Band of Nine. And I just want to name them all because it was cool to name them all. But yeah, so he's got this big group together. So we're going to flip over to the Westerosi side for the first part of this one to kind of like see how they're getting ready for this Band of Nine threat. So War of the Nine Pennykings. When told of these events, Prince Duncan Targaryen famously quipped that crowns were being sold 9 a penny. And afterwards, the Band of Nine became known in the Seven Kingdoms as the Ninepenny Kings. Most men, including King Aegon the Fourth, so King or the Fifth, sorry, King Aegon the Fifth. So Aegon the Unlikely, Egg is king while I'm saying this, and then later King Jaehaerys the Second Targaryen thought that the threat posed by these pretenders would be countered by the might of the free cities or otherwise in Essos. Nonetheless, preparations were made to make sure that the Blackfyres could not land on a Westerosi soil. In 260 AC, now King Jaehaerys II Targaryen sent an army to the Stepstones to meet the Band of Nine in battle. The war, dubbed War of the Ninepenny Kings, was fought entirely on the Stepstones. This conflict has often been referred to as the Fifth Blackfyre Rebellion by the fandom, since Maelys was the fifth Blackfyre pretender. So, yeah, we're starting off the war. So, this guy gets the band together, right? And then they go, do some stuff. And then eventually they take over the Stepstones kind of as a launch pad over to then go take over Westeros. So then Westeros just screw it. We're not having any fighting on the mainland. We're going to just fight in the Stepstones. So they go to meet him down there. So all out war! King Jaehaerys II Targaryen wished to personally take command of his forces, but was persuaded otherwise by his hand, Lord Ormond Baratheon. Lord Ormond took control of the Targaryen army instead. The task force included a fleet of 100 longships led by Quilon Greyjoy. The Greyjoys got in here too. Lord of the Iron Islands, and a force of 1,000 knights and 10,000 men sent by Lord Tytos Lannister from the Westerlands, under the leadership of his younger brother, Sir Jason Lannister. So Tytos, his younger brother, Jason. So then House Martell sent spears from Dorne. So it was everybody. All right, this is a big old group of a bunch of people. When the Targaryen host landed on the Stepstones in 260 AC, the fighting began in earnest on land and sea and lasted for the most of a year. Lord Ormond Baratheon was one of the first casualties in the war, killed by Maelys himself. We're still talking about Maelys. Dying in the arms of his younger son, Stefan. Command then passed to Lord Gerald Hightower. Yes, that Gerald Hightower. Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. After Jason Lannister was killed on a Bloodstone, Lord Roger Rayne led the remaining Westermen in several victories. So yeah, it's just a real war. There's a bunch of war stuff going on. So Maelys does personally kill the Hand of the King in battle too. And even like the Lannister dies too. So like big commanders are dropping. Important people dying. Killed by the Bold. Yeah, that's right. That's what. Yes, we made it. Many young knights and lords distinguished themselves in battle, including Stefan Baratheon, Brendan the Blackfish Tully, Tywin Lannister. Yep, that Tywin, and his younger brother Kavan, and Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King, when he was just a little young Mad King. The great uncle of Lord Willem Dustin participated in the war, as did Maribald, Septim Maribald, and of course his brothers. And in the end, it was young Barristan Selmy who cut a bloody path through the Golden Company's ranks to slay Maelys the Monstrous in single combat, thereby ending the threat to the Seven Kingdoms and launching the young knight into legendary status. Maelys' death decided the war, as the other members of the Band of Nine, barely interested in Westeros, fell back to their own domains. Their union would not last much longer. So King Jaehaerys II Second Targaryen had granted Barry a white cloak of the Kingsguard after he slew Maelys the Blackfyre during the War of the Ninepenny Kings. So yeah, that's how Barristan became a Kingsguard, is he killed the Monstrous. stabbed him or something, whatever. So yeah, so now we're just going to discuss what we got. Still a couple slides left. So now we're going to discuss times that he's talked about during the main series. So Jaime Lannister reads Barristan Selmy's page in the White book of the Kingsguard, where it is written that he slew Maelys the Monstrous, last of the Blackfyre pretenders, in single combat during the War of the Ninepenny Kings. He also had a major boner for the Blackfish for his time in that war. Yeah, I just had to add that because it's brought up anytime we bring in the War of the Ninepenny Kings. You always talk about how Jaime, like, when he went to possibly get betrothed to Lysa Tully, how weird would have that been, right? He spent the whole time not talking to Lysa Tully, and then just like, so Blackfish, what was it like fighting? Did you fight Maelys the Monstrous? You just fought in more than Ninepenny Kings. What was it like? Dude, you were so cool. And Blackfish is like, Jaime, I don't like you. Let me alone. Go flirt with my niece. Yeah, so I just had to bring that up. His love for the Blackfyre or Blackfish. In Essos, Illyrio Mopetus tells Tyrion that when Maelys died, the male line of the House Blackfyre came to an end. That night, Tyrion has a nightmare where he has two heads in fights in a battle alongside Barristan Selmy and Bittersteel. It's a little weird. I don't like those alliances of that fight, but there you go. Slaying his father and brother while the second head weeps. Bro, is that some fever dream? You eating some LSD before you go to bed? Come on, man. That's some crazy stuff. All right. At the camp of Golden Company, so later on, John Connington sees that the captain's general's tent is surrounded by a ring of pikes topped with the gilded skulls of previous captain generals. So the Golden Company, which was Bittersteel's company, right? When he died, he dipped his head in gold and he was like, dip my head in gold, my skull, and bring me to Westeros when you finally go to Westeros. So that became like a tradition of all these captain generals, everyone who was in charge of the Golden Company when they died, they dip their heads in gold so they can carry them whenever they go back to Westeros, right? So I just had to say that. So yeah, Maelys' skull is larger than the rest, grotesquely malformed, and below it a second fist-sized skull that of Maelys' unnamed twin brothers. So yeah, they just put both of Maelys' skulls on the same pike. That's fantastic. All right, so now we got theories. We don't have too much. Of course, we got the big main one, but I'm not going to cover it too much because this isn't time nor place to get into fake Aegon, but I will mention it. And then, yeah, then one other cool thing. So the fake Aegon theory is as old as the book that it was introduced in. Everyone's been saying so. It's impossible to know who started it. I have found Reddit posts, but I found multiple Reddit posts that look like they're pushing the theory for the first time, but it's hard to know. I'm assuming just a lot of people thought it at one time. So I don't want to credit anybody for coming up with because I try to look into theories and credit people when I can. But this is like one of those that, like, dude, where did fake Aegon theory come from? As soon as the book as soon as the book came out, that 50% of the people who read it had that theory. So it's hard to like say it came from one place, right? It's not obscure by any means. So Young Griff is actually a Blackfyre, not a Targaryen. And a big part of that theory is when Illyrio talks about Maelys, he drops that he was the end of the male line. So yeah, that line we brought up earlier when Illyrio Mopetus was like, that was the end of the male line. Because he specified male line, we're like, oh, so there's still somebody from the female line. Who's that? And that's what made the fake Aegon theory, right? So fake Aegon isn't actually Aegon Targaryen. Young Griff is actually a Blackfyre. That's the fake Aegon theory, which I think a lot of people believe at this point. So, yeah. Another cool one to add is in a earlier draft, drafting back to October of 03 and June of 04, present an alternative origin of Maelys' nickname, the Monstrous. In these early versions, Tyrion Lannister assess a history given by Holden Halfmaester to young Griff, in which lore about the Band of Nine is that the Blackfyres is taught. So he's teaching young Holden Halfmaester is teaching young Griff about the Band of Nine and the Blackfyres, and Tyrion is listening in this other timeline, in this fake draft, or not fake draft, but the draft they didn't go with. Holden explains that after killing his cousin Daemon, Maelys read an old Valyrian scroll gifted into him by Samaro Sand, the pirate, that king's blood could wake dragons from stone, which we hear about a lot, right? And then he sacrificed his only son, the 4-year-old Maynard, in a fire ritual to hatch dragon eggs. So they didn't end up going with that, but that could have been in a alternate draft, which he didn't go with. That was going to be why people called him the Monstrous, because he sacrificed his own 4-year-old son. They didn't end up doing that. So that's not written anywhere. That's just in a draft they didn't end up going with. So that's not part of the lore. But it's just another example of how George likes to talk about dragon dreams or whatever, or learning it from scrolls of waking dragons by king's blood. We just needed one more example, but he ended up not going with that, and then he was called the Monstrous because because he was disfigured and malformed at birth. So anyways, that's the very fun Maelys Monstrous. So thank you guys for watching. I wanted to cover a Blackfyre for a really long time, and hey, it ended up being the most terrifying and grotesque one. And yeah, I you gotta love Maelys Monstrous. He gave it his go. He was the last of the male line. There might be another one out there, but what do you guys think of Maelys Monstrous? Click like, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. Thank you for all your support. And yeah, you guys have a good day. Whatever you do, don't go to war at the Stepstones. I don't know, man. I'm not trying to make a statement like that, but don't go to war in the Stepstones to fight a dude with the nickname the Monstrous. That's what I'm getting at. Peace.